beyond the threshold is this video. We met on the Lionsgate portal August 8th, a Friday. There were some new people in attendance and a few returners. Thank you. The first thing that we did was our introduction. We brushed off the road dust. I'm sure when you think about a greeting and introducing yourself, there's a very like popcorn thing that happens. Say your name, answer the icebreaker, go around the room, right? And so you spend a short amount of time. Or, say hi to your neighbor, right? And everyone's like, ugh, and they talk to the person they know, or they just pick one person and stay. This is a bit more intense than that. I make people start talking to other people if they've been stuck too long with one person. I encourage them to make rounds around the room to say hi to each person, and we spend 25 minutes doing this because we need to prepare ourselves for being in a room and having all of these people witness us, maybe flex a muscle that we don't even know if we flexed before. This circle was all about strength training, but none of this was done with our bodies. Oh, all of it was done with our bodies. So we've got the physical, we've got the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. So we've got these 4 parts that make us up. And when we pull out the physical body, we've just got this triangle of mental, spiritual, emotional. And those are the weights that we're lifting. How do you lift mental, emotional, spiritual weights? Keep watching. Yeah. In total, the more videos you watch, the more circles you attend, the more of a total weight training system you're getting. But we're doing isolations. In strength training, we go to failure. We lift until we can't lift anymore. And then we try again, and we lift until we can't lift anymore. And we try again, and we lift until we can't lift anymore. It's about repetition. So then we did the You Are Here. Helping Spirits first wanted me to talk about what year we're living in, which is the year 2025. So we did a little bit of numerology there. Math. So 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5 equals 9er. 9 is the number of completion. So you're coming to complete some sort of a cycle. In the Chinese calendar, we're in the year of the snake. When a snake grows, it crawls out of its body. It crawls out of its entire body. It starts with the eyes. The first thing it does is it pushes the skin off of its eyes, and then it takes it off of its mouth. And then it starts to crawl out of its own head and crawl all the way out of its body until it leaves its last body fully behind. It starts with the eyes. It starts with what it can see. And then it does the mouth. And it starts with how it says, how it explains, how it feeds itself, what it feeds itself, what it takes in. And then it crawls out of its body. When a snake sheds, it is extremely vulnerable. Extremely. So it hides. It goes to its safest, darkest place, and it does this on its own. So we're in the year of the snake, but we're in the year of the wood snake. So the wood speaks to spring. It speaks to the season of springtime. So you have to think about, what does spring bring with it? Spring brings with it this energy, this so much happening, all this potential, and you feel the growth in the air. One thing that's interesting about it being a 9 year is that in the tarot, the 9 corresponds with the hermit. The hermit spends their time alone, like the snake, when it sheds. It's the wisdom of the snake that it goes to its solitary place to do that shedding, to be able to do its transformational work. it has to retreat. It has to stay safe. The hermit is also one who is retreating in wisdom so that they can. There's a generative thing that happens with the hermit. It's not the idea of, oh, you're alone, you're so lonely. It's the process of recognizing that no matter what, we are always hanging out with ourselves. And there's wisdom work to be done there. There's transformational work to do when we are by ourselves. So the year of the wood snake. Now what's interesting about this in a year 9 is that year 9 means we're completing something. And the wood snake means we're transforming into spring. So springtime, the time when spring begins is spring equinox is March 21st. This is actually also when Pisces stops and Aries begins, which means it's the end and the beginning of the zodiac. So it is an ending and beginning. Springtime is an ending and a beginning. So we have the hermit, the year 9, plus the year of the wood snake. So we are in this sort of year that is a liminal year in the sense of we're in a threshold year. We are in the time where things are ceasing to be, they're wrapping up, and we're crawling out of that old body and we're starting new. Now and also. The moon is full. At the time that we met, the moon was full. It was going to be full at midnight. It was going to be full in Aquarius. It's not anymore because it took me a few days to get here to tell you about it. It's not anymore, but it was full in Aquarius. And it was also sighted right up alongside Pallas Athena. So Aquarius is an air sign. So it rules the mental realms. Pallas Athena is said to have sprung forth from the mind of Zeus. She is a strategist. She's a warrior. So when these two come together, what we're talking about is strategizing, but not in the common way. Not in the way that we usually do. Not from a place of being at the center of something, but from a place of coming from the fringe. The Aquarians they're different. Aquarius is, I like to think of them as the aliens of the zodiac. They just do things in an alien way. But I just mean like non-ordinary. They do things in a non-ordinary way. So this full moons can bring confusion, chaos, clarity. They can bring a lot of energy. Something in its fullness, something in its ripeness, which means when we compare it to the cycle of a female, ovulation. We're talking about this point when we could get fertilized. So what is it that we could get fertilized? And there's all this strategy, all this rich with strategy going on. We're also at this Lionsgate portal. We met on 8/8. Lionsgate, the number 8 in the tarot is the strength card, which is emblemized by a lion most often. And we are in the sun sign of Leo, so we're in the time of the lion. We are in the time of fire. We are in the time of the Leo brings with it this confidence, this leadership. The Lion's Gate, it does speak to strength, but it also speaks to fertility. This was the time when historically the Nile would flood, and it would mean that we would have an abundant harvest. We're talking about the things that we can harvest. We are talking about fullness, ripeness, and for that to be corresponding with a full moon, we're talking about what can be fertilized and what we gain from that fertilization. What comes from that, the fruits of that. There's some astrology happening right now too, which is the Wednesday the week we met, Mars moved into Libra. So Mars rules the sign of Aries. Libra is the polar opposite of Aries. So Mars is it's exactly the opposite of where it wants to be. It's glorified in the sign that it rules. It is fully in the opposite sign. It is completely diametrically opposite of where it feels the the most comfortable. So my sun sign is Aries and my rising sign is Libra, which makes me the polar opposite of myself. Or you might want to say bipolar. Other people have. Medical professionals have, and they didn't even know how funny it was. They didn't even know that I was literally born that way. So Mars is in Libra, which is challenging. So on the day that we met at Lionsgate 8/8, Mars trine Uranus, which brought with it a very, very specific message, which was, how do we try things in a new, different way? How do we try things in a new, different way? This is an important question because the moon was about to become full in the sign of Aquarius, which is an air sign, talking about how do we strategize and think about things in a new and different way. So we have Mars with Uranus doing that work together with the moon in Aquarius, just being like, be an outsider and try to do something different. We then had Mars coming into a square the next day on Saturday with the 9th, with Saturn and with Neptune. And so it just got harder. It just got harder again. We had Saturn being like, these are the rules, and Mars being like, I'm going to push back on that, and Neptune being like, exactly, you know? Neptune just being like, I gotta come from like this deep other place. It just made it all uncomfortable, because Neptune does this deep, deep inner work, and then we have Saturn, and Saturn uncomfortable in Aries, and Neptune uncomfortable in Aries, while Mars is like, I want to be where you are, and they're like, we'd gladly go that way. So it was a challenging weekend that had a lot of potential. That's when we met. And we're being encouraged to do this work in a different way, in a way an outsider might do it. And the last place that we were was the season, which is, we're in Lammas, we're in Lughnasadh, in between the time of summer solstice and autumn equinox. So it's the dead center of summer. It's the height of summer, which means that everything is thick and grown, and it's hot, and we've been working, and we see that the days are starting to get shorter. We see that we're starting to lose light. We had just passed that day. It had happened the weekend before. So we're coming out of the earth in her cycle, coming out of ovulation, coming into like the luteal phase, recognizing that things are starting to slow down. There's still this like remembrance and this feeling, and still the energy of fertilization that we feel on and before, on and just after ovulation, where it's like, could I get fertilized? Is it gonna happen? Because even if we do get fertilized at our ovulation, we don't usually know it for a few weeks. We don't. So the earth is in that phase when things are starting to slow down. They're just starting to. So we're still having long, bright, hot days, but they're starting to get cooler, they're starting to get shorter. So the reason that I share that you are here is so you can take where you are in your cycle and apply this information and look at how it does and doesn't match up, and then maybe understand why things are hard for you or are easy for you, why it seems like everything's going your way right now, and then capitalize on that, or why it seems like you can't make any headway, and then don't blame yourself for that. Because there are other factors out there affecting it. So we talk about that you are here, because sometimes if you don't know what the season means, you don't understand why you're living through a theme that doesn't seem like it's where you are. Because I might be feeling really stuck. I might be feeling really stuck in what's going on in my life. I might be coming to the point of my bleeding. I might be, not all of you are bleeding people, I understand that. You might be coming to a point where you're just feeling like really, really low energy. That's just where you are in what it is to be you. while we're living in a spring year of transformation that's also an ending year, but we're going through an ovulation time of the moon and an ovulation time of the season and a time when everything should be abundant and ripe and full, and I don't have any energy. Okay, so how do I work with the energies knowing where things already are? Where can I be supported in making headway when I don't feel like I can produce a lot myself? It tells us when to work with other people. It tells us when to go in and take our time that we need. It gives us more scope to be able to traverse with. That's why we do the You Are Here. So let's talk about the work. This circle was brought to you by Polar Bear. Polar Bear showed up and said, I'm a shield for my young. I use my body to hide them from predators. Polar Bear said, I hide in plain view. Polar Bear said, when I hunt, it shows. Think about how a bear hunts. Their mouth and their paws, their talons. And think about what that must look like on their fur. And think about what a bear eats and where they get their food. When fur gets wet, it gets damp, it gets darker. When it's dry, it's fluffy and it's lighter. So they visually look different when they've been hunting. So when I hunt, it shows. They are known for being able to blend in. So if they're feeding themselves, they're vulnerable. Just like the snake. Polar Bear says, I both cannot hide and can hide well. So Polar Bear brought those things forward, and I went to my helping spirits and I said, how do I practically apply this information from Polar Bear? And they began showing me. And as they were showing me, I got very excited. I got very excited. I was like, oh, we're going to do this. Oh, we're doing this. It's going like this. Okay, should I also do this? And I got very excited and I got in the way. So I did the journey to get this work 2 days before we did it. So I did have a little bit of time. More time than last time, because the last circle I journeyed the day of. And it was super potent work. And it came from Kuan Yin, and her voice is so her voice. And it was the first information, the first work was so clearly laid out, so well understood. I was like, yes, I hear you. I will do this, yes. And we went and did it. And it was about compassion, and compassion is gentle. But we weren't dealing with compassion because we weren't working that muscle group this time. We were working a different muscle group. And I got in the way. And I got excited and I added to it almost. And what's interesting is we did not have time for what I added. Great. It's exactly as it should be. The helping spirits were giving me this simple work, and I was like, it goes further. And it does. The work does keep going. And they were like, yes, it does. It does. That is the direction that it goes. But you're not going to have time for that. Which they may have said, but I was just very, very excited. So I came thinking we were going to be doing more than we did. And what we did, I thought I failed at. I'm gonna keep going to show you why. So the helping spirits had me buy composition books. And everybody got a book and a pen, and they were asked to answer 3 questions. So the first question was, so if you're doing this work at home, if you want to do this work on your own, get your journal at this point and answer these questions. You could pause the video, answer these questions, and we gave 3 minutes per question. And the idea is to write as many things come to mind. Just keep writing, keep writing. And if you want to do longer than 3 minutes because you're like, this is useful for me, I do want to know the answers to these questions, something that happens when we do automatic writing is automatic writing means we just take the pen and we just start writing. We just hear the question and we just write until we cannot write anymore. And it's hard not to think about it. Of course you're thinking about it, but automatic writing is more just like knee-jerk responses, where it's almost like your body is answering through your hand and not so much your brain. So let yourself write 3 minutes minimum, or as long as you feel like it. Answer these 3 questions. The first question: how do you hide? And they mean, what are the phrases that you hide behind? And maybe for you it's not words, maybe it's silence, which a fair amount of people answered. But to the best of your ability, come up with, what phrases do you use when you hide? My phrases are like, I'll just do it myself. I got this. No, I'm fine. It's fine. I heard somebody else say, like, I'm just existing. The next question: how do you protect yourself? Now this is, again, the phrases. Write down what phrases you use when you protect yourself. And the question is, when you are protecting yourself or when you're protecting other people from you. I often try to protect people from me. When my energy gets really low, when I don't have a lot of spoons for the day, when I don't have a lot of resources for the day, when I have hard mental health because I'm having a hard bipolar day, I start to believe that I'm a problem. That's my old, most base belief, is that I don't have the capacity for this. And so what I say to push people away, to protect them from me, because I'm a mess, but what I say to people to push them away is I say, I'm just an awful person. So write down how you protect yourself or how you protect others from you. One of the other things that I was really able to recognize that I do is I do this thing where when I want to protect myself, I never believed that I was safe. So the way that I protected myself was I just started being so transparent and showing this big gaping wound of how messy I was, so that it was like, well, we can't be safe, we can't hide. So, we're just going to have to, we protect ourselves by opening ourselves up and just getting through it and just showing the pussy, ugly mess and letting people judge and letting people tell me what I need to be doing better and letting people tell me how much I'm fucking up. And then hopefully we'll just get through it. And that's how I protect myself. I keep myself safe by making myself unsafe. Interesting why I would be leading a circle like this. It's like I've been practicing this my whole life. The third question is, how do you attack? And what some people learned is that question, a lot like the last question, isn't just how do you attack when you come at others, when you're under-resourced or when you're offended or whatever. But they also recognize, I don't really attack, but I do attack myself. And when I attack myself, it sounds like this. My attack sounds something like, you should take some ownership for what you've done. Or I just call you a garbage person. Those are the things that I do for attack. And it's interesting because when I looked back over my answers, I recognized that for my hide, I have this belief that I'm just alone. I have a belief that I have to do this and go this alone. And when I talk about how I protect myself, I most often protect others from me because I'm alone and I have to do this alone. And when I attack, I just get kind of ugly. And anyway, I noticed this theme. And this leads into the next part of the work. So after we wrote down our answers, we sat and we felt into who is the one that is answering these questions. Who's the one that uses these phrases? And we gave them a name. Oh, it's important to name because what it does, it allows us awareness. The fourfold path of Kali is be aware, be honest, be kind, and take appropriate action. So if we actually want to recognize what these phrases are doing for us, they're all a way for us to deal with something, some situation that we're in. But if we're using pre-recorded responses, those pre-recorded responses did derive somewhere. They didn't originate in the moment. They're pre-recorded. They didn't originate in the moment. They're pre-recorded. So they came from somewhere. So we're asking you to name that somewhere. When I went back and looked at all my answers, I was like, Jude, because my name's Jessica Joy, and it just was like, rude. All of the answers are rude. So it was Jude. Some people already knew those alter egos as we were paired up. And as with the first circle, Spirit had me pair people up. They have me pair people up in this fashion. It's just a series of cups and colored lines connecting them. I found and connected the 2 red lines, the 2 yellow lines. It's a synesthesia thing. I explained it last time. But if you didn't watch the last video, I'm not mad. But I do think you're a garbage person. Just joking. That was Jude. And when we were paired up, we spent 5 minutes sharing the answer to the first question. I shared mine, they shared theirs. And what we did was we listened to all of the other person's answered, and we tried to feel where the truest truth was. We tried to find the best answer. Well, it may not be a good answer, but we found the one that was the truest. And we did this to try to get to the point of identifying that kind of that core belief underlying what you're trying to say when you respond that way. And then so you back and forth and you listen to them and they listen to yours. And then we moved on to the second question. You listen to them and listen to theirs. So we can kind of do this on our own if we're working on our own at home too. And maybe you want to be in front of a mirror because it's more uncomfortable, and that's helpful because then it feels like someone else is there. But really what you want to do is just read them out loud. Read down everything you write out loud. You'll get stuck on one. One of them will feel like it's kind of snagged you. One of them you'll feel in your heart, you'll feel in your belly. One of them where you're like, oh, that's the one. What this is doing is it's bringing awareness. It's showing us where we're not kind, and it's showing us where we're being honest. So we do this practice just to suss out what's the most honest of all the answers that I gave. Then we give that alter ego a name. And we do that to become aware of the fact that maybe I don't even want to respond this way, but it's happening. It's a pre-recorded response. It's happening. So it may not be how you want to respond, but it is how you find yourself responding. So the reason that we are taking the time to do this is because if we can hear ourselves using one of those pre-recorded responses that we have identified, we can do a thing where we call them by name and we say, Jude, I see what you're doing. But then who is it that's saying, Jude, I see what you're doing? That's you now, observing. You become the observer and you observe the pattern at play. And when you observe the pattern at play that you've named and almost allowed yourself to separate out from you, you're separating it so that you can gain a little bit of distance so that you can actually feel, do I feel that way? Do I identify with that? Where do I identify with that? And is that my honest response? Is that really how I feel about this situation that I'm in? And it doesn't mean that you're going to have the strength or the knowledge to know how to respond differently in that moment when you're triggered or reacting or angry or uncomfortable or have anxiety or feel shut down. It doesn't mean that you're going to exactly just definitely know what to do immediately, but it starts the process of recognizing that I don't agree with the pre-recorded response for this moment, for this issue that I'm in front of, and I don't agree with that doesn't feel like me. That doesn't feel like how I feel. And then we can recognize, how do I feel? And we can start to take appropriate action. We did share because that's a thing that we do in Threshold. And one of the first share, the person said, I don't like to split my mind. So I didn't name. I don't want to split my mind. I don't want to have alter egos. It's all me. And yes, it is all you. We've all been hurt. And you've heard that phrase, hurt people hurt people. It was a brand new hurt people. But often people who are hurt other people. Our hurts happen really young. And then they just keep happening until we figure out how to respond to them appropriately. So that hurt just keeps happening. And what we do is, as a kid, we jerry-rig a response. But we're using child logic. So when we give the alter ego to the child logic, what we do is we start to be able to be grateful for how that highly skilled, wounded child took care of us. But still, they used a child's tools and child logic to come up with a response that we are still using because it's pre-recorded and because it's knee-jerk and because it's what we know. And because when we don't know what to do, and we're overwhelmed, we just fall back on our laurels. We just fall back on our old programming. We just fall back on the pre-recorded. So to become aware of it is the first step of really anything, right? You become aware, and then you start doing things differently. But the how do you go from becoming aware to doing things differently? That's what strength training is. We become aware of it. We be kind to ourselves. We get honest about what's really going on. And then we repetition to try to take appropriate action. And the goal is to, what is appropriate action? So everyone was tasked with the homework of, when you start to hear those pre-recorded responses, acknowledge by name your alter ego. Jude, thank you for trying to protect me. Thank you for responding for me when I didn't know what to do. And the idea is to actually thank them out loud, because then you are building the relationship with the part of yourself that's been disenfranchised, which is very important, because this part of you is over here just operating, and you've got this knee-jerk operation that just, something happens and they just step in and they're like, don't worry, I've got you. So the next thing that we did was we got in circle, and everyone was asked to share one of their truest answers out of the 3 questions, and they were asked to share their name. And some people didn't do that at all. Some people shared these amazing things that they learned from this practice. That it was the act of being asked to do this stuff brought them into their own understandings and insights about themselves, which was massively powerful. And a lot of the people ended up giving themselves alter ego names, which were names that empowered them and made them feel strong. And this is the point that was never even told to them, that they did this, which was so amazing, is that those parts of ourselves are actually our strength. That part of ourself that's responding that way is our strength. It's just our strength didn't know what to do with itself when it was young. It wasn't cultivated in strength training, and it was young. So it did everything in its might to protect us, but now it needs to start being developed. So it was really potent sharing because it was all over the board. It went from I won't split my mind to my alter ego reminded me that I deserve love, to my alter ego has been helping me for years and I'm aware of that. We had just enough time to share after doing the work when our time was up. So I said to everyone, hey, I didn't plan well because I interfered and added more work that wasn't assigned. So y'all want to stay for a bonus round? Stay. Everyone but one person did. And they had to go into the weight room and pick up a weight. And then they had to walk around carrying it. Well, they had to go into the weight room and pick up a weight. And as they were walking around, I was like, you got to walk around, you got to keep carrying it. And so they didn't know they were going to have to keep carrying it, but they went and they chose a weight. Now, what weight they chose was telling... This is the only weight I could find for this demonstration. This weight is formerly from a machine. It's no longer part of the machine that it was intended to be used in. I also have no idea how heavy it is. It's 72380. That's all I can see on it. So it's clearly 72,380 pounds. That's how heavy my weight is. But it's also used to be part of a machine, and it's not on that machine anymore. For me, that's actually quite telling, because the weights that I lift used to be part of a whole different system. And when these pre-recorded responses come out, I hear that system come out. And that's not who I want to be, and that's not how I want to respond. So I was looking for a weight to do this, just to hold a weight for the demonstration, and this was so appropriate. And this joke, I didn't even know I was going to get to make. So the fact that it's 72,380 pounds is exactly what it feels like, where my childhood came from. What's really interesting is the weight that people chose, because it's indicative of how they view how heavy the burden of those phrases is. Maybe it was really light. Maybe it was real. One person said, "Why did I pick such a heavy weight?" Because it is heavy for you. Some people picked weights with handles, because they do kind of have a handle on this. Again, the thing that you're drawn to is part of your messaging. And then we played the Rocky song for them. Told that they had to ask this question. They had to ask their alter ego, will you help me carry the weight of these phrases? And most people's alter egos were like, I have been helping you for decades. But the reason that we named them is so that we could come into relationship with them. Not so that they would agree to help us. They've always been helping us. We are trying to be in relationship with them because we have been keeping them over here, not acknowledging what they're doing for us. And part of the awareness of being able to integrate that voice, that energy, that strength is by training with that strength, which means being in relationship with it. That's why we name it. And that's why we separate it. And we separate it only long enough until we can reintegrate it. But we separate it to have the distance to understand what is occurring, to have the awareness so that we can come into relationship, which is taking appropriate action, learning how to work together with our strength. And that is where the work goes to that I got too excited about. And we're just not there yet. Because you can't have somebody lift 50-pound weights when they've yet to lift a 10-pound weight. And that was why I thought that I failed. I thought that I failed this threshold because when I left, I was like, am I not doing enough? Am I not helping enough? Because I could feel people. Because I had just done a compassion calibration. Last month at Threshold, because I have empathy for people, and because when I felt people vulnerably showing each other these phrases and the way that they hide and the way that they protect and the way that they attack, or the way they attack themselves, or the way that they attack themselves in an effort to protect, they were being really vulnerable with each other, and I could feel it, and I wanted to do more. I wanted to help them. I wanted to help heal where they needed healing. I wanted to help hear where they needed hearing. And I wanted to help reflect where they couldn't hear. But that's not what we do in Threshold. While this work is healing work, this is not a healing circle. This is a strength training circle. We are coming and we are lifting to see where our failure is. We're lifting as many times as possible until our arm says, that's as much as I can do, J-Joy. Please stop. And until I start shaking and until I can't lift it anymore. And obviously this is 72,380 pounds, so I'll clearly be able to do thousands of these. I'm not getting red. I'm not getting annoyed. You don't see the color rising up in my chest. No way. I don't have to give up. Okay, I'm at a failure. Which is a success because I was able to do that many. And if I keep up the repetition, I'll be able to handle more. In case you didn't notice, these responses, how do I hide? How do I protect and how do I attack? This is fight, this is flight, this is freeze. I thought that I had failed everyone. I thought that I hadn't done enough. And so what I did was I stayed in the discomfort. And then I started reaching out to the people who attended, and I started saying, how did that work set with you? How are you feeling? And it turned out that everybody kind of had a little worm. The work wormed its way in. And every single person that I talked to gave me a different insight about what they got from it and how it affected them and why it was useful and what it made them think about. And it all reflected back to me why I needed to feel like I failed. Because the narrative of strength training is that failure is the practice of success. We have to go to failure, then we got to do it again, and then go to failure, and then do it again, and then go to failure and do it again. And it's about repetition in practice. So I encourage you to try this work. See how it lands for you. See where it gets too heavy. Become aware of it. Desire to get to the point of taking appropriate action. Come into the relationship with your disenfranchised strength. So I do ask that you offer some sort of reciprocity for the work. When you attend Circle, we ask $10. If you do this work on your own, please make a donation of $10. If you can't, please don't. If you can offer more, if this work is worth more to you, please offer more. And also, if you can do nothing else, if this work moves you or affects you in some way, please share it with someone who you think would find it useful, who you think would find it interesting. Do that one sacred thing that allows this work to make its way out into the world and share. I think we're just going to have to end with strength training. I mean, I think it's all that's left. Okay, we're just going to go to failure. You guys with me? Okay, I'm just going to do this until I turn so red that I have to set it down and turn this video off. And let's see how, ooh, I like that way. Oh yeah, that feels really good. Ooh, oh, it's like a heart beating right at you. The strength of the heart beating right at you. Look how red I'm getting. Oh, failure. Come on, failure. So red. I matched my hair. So if you want to come lift weights with us, we do it at Her Elevated. We are actually moving, so we have been operating on Fridays. We're finding a new home on the first Sunday of every month. So if you're interested in attending, it's at Her Elevated, which is 1900 28th Street in Sacramento. We are meeting monthly every first Sunday from 5:30 to 8 p.m. We're taking a little bit of a longer window of meetings so that we can have our long introduction and have time for the work and have time for everyone to share. If that sounds daunting to you, you should come. Because you know what they say. If you don't have an hour to meditate every day, you should probably meditate for 2 hours.